This is Johnny, the chubby, Caucasian, Christian, closeted conservative. Some might say I'm everything wrong with the world, but don't take their word for it. Make up your own mind. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. I don't know if any of you have been following me on Facebook this week, but I've been posting a lot of information about Dr. Fauci. I have downloaded the emails. There's about 3,000 pages, and I have gone through roughly 100 pages. I've also done some Control Fs, that's to find certain words within the document. I looked up things like China, origins, even some of the medicine like hydroxychloroquine and stuff like that. So as I've been going through these emails, I've been posting some of them that I find interesting on my Facebook. So without further ado, let's chew the fat about Dr. Fauci. Now, before we get too far into this, I don't believe myself to be a science denier by any means. I am not an individual who's going to argue with you about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. Over the past couple of weeks, since the CDC and Dr. Fauci have changed their opinion, I have really not worn a mask until I've been asked to, and then there's no problem. I just put it on. Luckily, my 3-year-old son has also been very understanding and willing to wear a mask. So I'm not one of those parents who is continuously getting harassed because their kid is not wearing a mask. And for those parents out there, my heart breaks for you. It really does. If I was in that situation, I don't even know how we would deal with it. I have no idea. Luckily, my son, when he wears it, he thinks he's a race car driver. So I'm not a science denier. A place that I hope all of us can find common ground on is that a lot of people made a lot of mistakes in the very beginning of COVID and even up until recently in COVID. These people would include Dr. Fauci, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and yes, even Donald Trump and people in Donald Trump's cabinet. In the very beginning, it was unclear how this virus spread, where it originated from, and how to treat it. But I was continuously lectured by my liberal Larry and liberal Linda family and friends that I need not worry, that it's all figured out. It's all science, John. It's all science. The people who told me that in March and April of 2020, you have no right to ever talk about science again. The people who came and told me the science changed, you are incorrect. The science didn't change. Science doesn't change. Your hypothesis and theories have changed. The way the virus spread is the way the virus spread and still spreads. It didn't change. What changed was our understanding about it. So again, common ground. Whether you want to call it the science changing or not, that's fine. But we found out different things about the virus along the way that contradicted things that we already knew. That's the first common ground I hope we can agree on. The second common ground is that everybody made mistakes. Everybody was wrong about certain things, and there were a lot of things a lot of people got correct. But in the very beginning of 2020, there was a lot more incorrect, or I'm going to use a liberal phrase here, misinformation out there about COVID than there was actual facts.
We choose truth over facts.
Joe Biden got out again. Keep him away from the kid. I remember my wife and I spending hours wiping down our groceries and mail and anything else that came in the house because apparently this virus can live on surfaces for days. Now, I just want to play a couple of clips of Dr. Fauci. Here we go.
Isn't it just theater? No, it's not. The vaccine and you're wearing 2 masks. Isn't that theater? No, that's not. Here we go again with the theater. Let's get down to the facts. Let me just state for the record that masks are not theater.
I am now much more comfortable in people seeing me indoors without a mask. I mean, before the CDC made the recommendation change, I didn't want to look like I was giving mixed signals.
Now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
One mask is good. 2 masks are better.
A year or two or more from now, that during certain seasonal periods, when you have respiratory-borne viruses like the flu, people might actually elect to wear masks.
It's very, very strongly leaning towards this could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated.
So I wanted to ask, are you still confident that it developed naturally?
No, I'm not convinced about that. I think that we should continue to investigate what went on in China.
I think that there will be others coming. And that is when you have a fully vaccinated person and they come into contact with someone who is known to be infected with SARS-CoV-2, they don't have to do the kind of quarantine that we had been recommended.
We do have a good vaccine against. That's more incentive to say, rather than even think about declaring victory and saying, well, we have herd immunity, we're in good shape. We've got to keep pushing and pushing, continue to do the public health measures that we speak about all the time. The uniform wearing of masks, the physical distancing, the avoiding congregate settings, at the same time as we do everything we can to get vaccines into the arms of people as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Can you try to help us understand when will life get back to normal? How long does this last?
It's going to be a matter of, several weeks to few months for sure.
Will we be ripping our masks off and running back to the office? What will day-to-day life look like?
That's a good question, and it's going to depend very much on what the percent or level of efficacy of the vaccine is. I would be very happy with 75%.
I don't want to be making a recommendation now on public TV. We want to sit down with the team, take a look at that. Fully vaccinated, do we really have to have as stringent the public health measures than you would if it was a stranger who was not vaccinated and you were not vaccinated? Common sense tells you that, in fact, you don't have to be as stringent in your public health measures. But what we want to get firm recommendations from the CDC.
Now, a lot of these clips, they're taken from all over the place and all throughout the timeline of COVID. I understand that. Things change. We learn different things. I got it. I understand. That is an excuse for why this information was wrong. It doesn't actually stop that information from being wrong. Let me say that again. Saying over time we've learned different things, that the science, quote, changed, is an excuse for why mistakes were made. It doesn't actually make those mistakes less wrong. Now, I'm not trying to cancel Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci is a very smart man. He's been given many awards. You can look all through his history. He has many degrees. He's been given awards. He's worked under a lot of presidents. He's run a lot of NIH type things. He's even been involved in other pandemics. I don't want Dr. Fauci canceled. I honestly don't want him fired, and I don't blame him for these deaths and making mistakes. What I do blame, I want to blame the media. Dr. Fauci's word was the Bible. It was the scripture. It was every rule that we were supposed to follow. And sometimes he was wrong. And there were other people out there who had different opinions, other doctors, people qualified to have an opinion, and they were silenced because it didn't match up with what Dr. Fauci or the CDC was saying. I don't even want to blame deaths on Dr. Fauci. I'm not going to lower myself to the crazy left comrades who want to blame Donald Trump for every single death. Dr. Fauci is human. He made mistakes. He made conclusions to theories. He hypothesized certain things that were wrong. And if the clip that I played for you doesn't prove that enough, there's more. I've been posting these emails on my Facebook all week. One of the most interesting ones that I came across was an email from Courtney Billett. She appears to be a member of the NIH, NIAID. She emails Dr. Fauci. She says, I got a question from Donna Young. Do you know how the novel coronavirus jumped from a bat to a civet cat, and she puts skunk, served at a feast in China, and then jumped to humans? Is that the source for certain, Or was he just giving an example? Is there something you can provide to show that information? Dr. Fauci replied, "That is not what I said. I said for SARS, the virus went from bat to civet cat to human. For MERS, it went from bat to camel to human." This is the important part of the email. So listen very closely. And out of the 100-ish pages I've read, this is like top 2 of the most interesting things I've read in his emails. So after he talks about the MERS virus, he goes on to say, "I said we did not know what the animal reservoir was for the jump from animal to human with the novel coronavirus. Please tell her that. Thanks." Now, I don't know about you, but when I read that, and from his previous comments that I played in the clip earlier, Dr. Fauci seems very confident that the coronavirus came from an animal. And if you speculated that on social media or in mainstream media or in Fox News, you were asked to be canceled and you were deemed some radical right Republican, some ignorant white supremacist, Donald Trump loving, gun-toting science denier. And then this is my favorite.
The idea, I think, is quite far-fetched that the Chinese deliberately engineered something so that they could kill themselves as well as other people. I think that's a bit far out.
That's got to be the best, right? Why would China do something to kill themselves? Because it's China. China went communist in 1949. They've had the same president since 2013, Xi Jinping. Before that, it was his father. They charge you if you have extra children. They have a one-child policy. The Washington Post reported in 1985 that when they have a second kid, they put him in a box and they leave him outside for dead. And then they go tell the doctor that it was a stillbirth or a miscarriage. Why don't they recognize Taiwan as a country? They want to take Taiwan back. China hasn't done anything to help the world since World War II. And I think that might be giving them a little too much praise. The only reason they were on our side was because they were already fighting Japan. They were over there fighting the Japanese, trying to figure out whose land was whose. It seems like the only reason China helped us out was because we had similar mutual interests. Japan had bombed us, we were fighting back against them, and China wanted some of their land. They didn't join us because it was the right thing to do. They joined us because they were going to benefit from it as well. We had similar interests. In the Korean War, thousands of communist China troops were sent into Korea to fight against the U.S. and the Republic of Korea troops. We were set up to go in and have a quick victory, but China got involved and prolonged the war and helped kill some of our men, some of our troops. They supplied them weapons. They are a communist nation. They are corrupt, and they don't like America. And I'm not even sure if they like the rest of the world. In America, it doesn't make any sense to make a disease and then unleash it onto your own people because we are good people. We care about our country. We care about our neighbor. China does not. They have an overcrowding problem. You know what actually makes sense to me? Is they can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We'll take care of our overpopulation problem and maybe knock off a couple other countries that we're competing with. In the early part of this COVID, anyone from Wuhan couldn't travel into China, and anyone in China couldn't travel into Wuhan. But you could go from America to Wuhan, and you could come to Wuhan from Wuhan to America. It's not that far-fetched of an idea. China is a hostile actor. Our current president wants to play nice with them and try to get along. And I respect him for that. To try to handle this diplomatically. To have 2 men sit down and have a conversation. Let me tell you what. They see us as a competitor. They see us as an opponent. Have you ever seen 2 men before they get in a ring together? They look at each other like they hate each other. They want to kill each other. Now, I don't think Dr. Fauci should get fired. I don't want him silenced. I don't want him to go away. I think he's a very smart man. My solution to this problem is, why did we silence other individuals? Why didn't we let other doctors talk? In the very beginning of this podcast I listened to had Dr. Oz on 2 or 3 times. And Dr. Oz talked about stuff that I never heard Dr. Fauci talk about. And some of Dr. Oz's stuff made sense. Dr. Oz talked about when he went to the store, he went to the paper aisle. There was no toilet paper. There were no paper towels. But 3 hours over, there were plenty of vitamins. He said he got himself some vitamin C, some vitamin D, and some zinc. There have been commonalities with people who do better with COVID. It's not a cure. People who do better with COVID when they have zinc in their system. And as we all hopefully know, vitamin C does help you fight off illness and sickness. It's a good vitamin for you. But when you said back in 2020 that it's possible the virus came from a Wuhan lab, you were canceled. You were not allowed to say that. That was against the rules. You couldn't say that. My proposal is that we have 2 chief medical advisors to the president. We have 2. We have one from the previous administration, and then the new president gets to pick one, and it has to go through Congress where they are approved just like a cabinet member. That way, if there's a turnover of parties, we have another check and balance. That is what this country is all about, checks and balances. I want to be clear. I'm not saying to get rid of Dr. Fauci. I'm attempting to bring more people and more opinions into the conversation. Let me wrap up here. My personal opinion. I honestly don't think that China released this virus on purpose. Unlike Dr. Fauci, I think that should be left on the table. I think it's possible. However, it's highly unlikely. I think it's equally likely that COVID originated from an animal and accidentally got out of the Wuhan lab. But hopefully time will tell. Hopefully we can get a decent investigation into this and actually find the truth. What actually happened? This will not be the last time I talk about COVID. There are a lot of other ideas and topics that revolve around COVID that we haven't even touched on. So remember, until next time, you can look me up on Facebook, YouTube, Anchor, or wherever you get your podcasts. All you have to do is search the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative and look for my eagle. A family member of mine painted that eagle, and I loved it so much that she gave me the original. She has a Redbubble account. You can find the link to it in my description. She's very talented. There are a lot of other beautiful works of art. So you just go to Redbubble, search Robin N. Brown, or you can find the link in my description. And remember, subscribe, like, rate, and comment. And we will see you later.